I call the meeting for Planning and Zoning for July 26th to order here. We'll let the commissioners introduce themselves, starting over here.
Morning, I'm Mel Roop.
Jared Nanke.
Ted Gambogi.
Ken Mabarak.
Terry Marshall.
George Lee.
We've got Darla over here, and I'd like to recognize Jim Lamerson and Phil Good, who are the council members. We have our city attorney over here on the far right. I think he's done with his donut now. So, okay, so we will move on. The first item on the agenda relates to the approval of the minutes, and one point on that is there's a last item that we are going to discuss later. We can approve the minutes, but the last item we need some clarification because we had a motion in there to change the potential land use in the general plan up there, but we're not sure what we really did and exactly the details on the motion. So we're going to just kind of research that, but it's somewhat irrelevant anyway because it probably would come through as a combo with any kind of future applications anyway. But in general, we were just thinking, we were probably all thinking different things. But I was thinking that what we were kind of doing there was partly prohibiting the land use of a hotel or a conference center or something like up there now that would be in the middle of residential. But did you want to say anything? Yes.
Yeah, just to clarify that situation, they brought us a package application of a site plan approval for the purpose of obtaining water and a general plan amendment to modify the land use designation of the site. They did the land use designation as, I don't want to call it a concession exactly, but to modify it to a residential land use. They can do residential both under the current commercial zoning on that site and the commercial designation in the general plan on that site. It was an offer by the applicant to change that. Because it came as a package with the site plan and that general plan amendment, they wanted to have an opportunity to revise their site plan and bring you that package back with a different proposal. So all of it stayed together, and the applicants asked us to hold sending it on to council with your negative recommendation until they could revise it. So we haven't sent any of that to council because it's a package.
Right. So, I mean, we technically didn't do anything because nothing was going to move forward by itself to council, which approves things. We just giving a recommendation. So even though we're recommending it, until some other steps happen, nothing's really going to get done with it. So we're just going to research that point, and I don't know whether we're going to say we passed something or whether we're just going to clarify. But I guess we'll figure that out. But we're not going to discuss it as a body right now, and so I guess what we'll do is Sue wants to give a motion on approval of the minutes. Yes.
Sir, if you want us to do that research on it, you don't have to approve those minutes today. You can defer them to the next meeting.
Well, I mean, I was thinking we can approve the minutes with knowing that there's going to be some administrative clarification on that last item. Perfect. And then you don't even have to bring it back.
That works for us.
Yeah, okay. So does someone want to make a motion? Ken, bring it on.
I'm not sure what motion to bring up. I remember I voted no on this issue because I've never seen that we just have a application to change a general plan without some other action. So I said no to the motion to change the general
Mr. Chairman,
plan.
let me just make a suggestion. The question on approval of the minutes is, do the minutes accurately reflect the meeting? So whether you knew what you were voting on or not, or voted something differently than you thought you did, the question is what was the outcome of the vote, and does that accurately reflect it? So I think you're correct to say you shouldn't discuss it because it's not an agendized item. If there's further direction to staff to go do something and bring it back, that's fine. But the question here is on that last item, do those minutes accurately reflect the outcome, the discussion and outcome of that issue?
Right. Yeah, and I tend to think that they don't in terms of the detail because I don't believe we were intending to make a motion for, to have this zone to be commercial. Like,
I don't have the minutes in front of me. If the majority don't feel the minutes accurately reflect the discussion and outcome, then I think George is correct. You should just postpone that decision.
On the whole, on all the minutes.
On all the minutes, because it's really approved as a whole or not. And if you can't approve it as a whole, if you don't believe as a body or as a majority that you can't approve it as a whole, then I would just postpone it and move to the next item.
Okay. Do we need a motion to postpone, or just?
The chairman can postpone it.
Just, okay, we'll postpone it. I believe we have consensus on that. Okay, item number 2, revision of plat of Willow Creek Heights to split a parcel.
I don't know what we had up here before, but they were using a microscope. This is a request to split a parcel within a subdivision, so it's a revision of plat to do so. This particular subdivision is on Lakeview Drive, and it's not obvious on this picture because this is the aerial. It just sort of gives you an idea of what the location is. There's a series of relatively large lots that were created by the original subdivision plat. They're 3 acres or larger in size. Those lots along the street are very deep. They're relatively flat at the front, closer to the street, and then they go up a hill to an area up on top of the hill up here. There's another subdivision, and this is actually on top of a mesa. So the dark area you see that runs along the back of all of those lots is a slope that goes up the hill. The request is to split this particular lot, the one you see highlighted, in such a way that it creates a flag lot. And that flag lot would allow for a second buildable lot, still meeting all of our requirements for a minimum lot size under its zoning, behind the front row of houses, behind this existing house. Correct. Any development back there would require grading, access, meeting all of our fire and building code requirements. Those things are going to be applied to any construction that occurs. It's partially obscured by this picture, but a little further to the east, you can see there are a couple of places further down where there are actually houses in the back on separate split lots. This may be a little easier to see.
No.
So you can see, so this is the lot in question. So the lot just to the west of it has been split. There's a house at the front. There's the secondary lot in the back that has not been constructed. The house to the east of it, same thing. House to the east of that, same thing, or the lot to the east of that. This one has not been split. That one has. That one has been split, and there is a structure in the back. And then as you get a little bit further down here, these lots actually face the adjacent street. So the request is to do with this lot pretty much the same thing that the lots east and west of it have already done, and that is to create a flag lot with a flagpole portion that provides access to both vehicular, a driveway, vehicular access to the site, and utilities from Lakeview Drive back to this new buildable lot in the rear. It is obviously has been a common request in this area to do that. These were exceptionally large lots at the time they were created. The SF35 zoning requires just under an acre for lot sizes, and again, these were more than 3 acres in their original configurations. The property request has, I apologize, well, I'm going to have to zoom back out on that one. As we mentioned, in splitting the lot, you're creating a long flagpole portion that will provide access to the rear lot. In that flagpole portion, he's also creating an easement for utilities and access. And that's evident, the reason for that is evident in the aerial photo. The existing house has a loop driveway that loops across the front of the house. That flagpole portion that's being created for the rear lot incorporates a portion of that driveway down to a certain point. So that easement will allow future owners of both lots to use that for ingress and egress into the property. It will also provide the connection and utilities that we talked about a moment ago, or that I talked about a moment ago, allowing them to hook onto the utilities on Lakeview Drive. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any particular questions, I'd be happy to answer. Again, it appears to meet all of our requirements for revisions of plat and lot splits, and is in conformance with what's been done east and west of it throughout that block.
Yeah, yes, Terry?
I have some questions.
Certainly.
In looking at the lots out there, were they all easements, access, the ones that's already been divided?
Some of them are, most of them are not. Most of them do not share access between the newly created parcel and the existing parcel. Those flagpoles were created would have direct and only access to the back lot. This one, again, partially because of the shared, already existing driveway right there, require the easement. So in most cases, there's no easement.
Excuse me. Would the others be a private street? My question has to do, and maybe I heard you say, about grading, and then that comes with the building permit. But
Correct.
my concern is drainage. I'm not very fond of, actually, of easements for access. I'd rather see a private street that sets out the owners to maintain that access. And so those are my concerns in looking
Okay.
at them up and down the street there.
So in response to that, generally, we don't create a street for access for one lot. And that's what you would do if you created a street, even a private street, for just that back lot that's proposed. The easement is only there to provide that shared access because there's already an existing driveway. They could remove that driveway and not have an easement, and now only, they wouldn't need the easement for the shared access. So at this point, it's only because, from a practical standpoint, there's already a driveway there.
Does staff then review the easement to make sure all these items that I'm concerned about?
Maintenance of the easement is between those two property owners. It is purely between those two property owners. It does not involve the city in any way. That's just to guarantee to each other, and in this case, it's a single property owner, but at some point it will be two. It's only to guarantee between those two that they have access. It's a private easement.
Yeah, okay.
I had no trouble with this until Terry mentioned what he just mentioned. Because it is an easement, it can vaporize by agreement of the parties.
Correct.
No.
It
can't?
Disabuse
Well,
you of that idea.
Even if it did, it doesn't matter.
Well, it would, because you can't have a lot with that doesn't have access. You don't want to create a lot with
That's
that
where
access.
that's where I was going.
Well, let me disabuse you of that idea. I'm going to go back to Property 101. Property is a bundle of sticks. The easement is a permanent easement. It's recorded. It's forever. It's just like owning the property in fee. It is not a public easement. It's a private easement from one property owner to another property owner. In this case, if you create the flag lot owner, the back lot, grants an easement to the front lot owner to use that part of the flag for that existing driveway, or vice versa, depending on how they want to do it. It's purely a private transaction between two parties. The easement is permanent. It cannot be revoked unless the language in the easement says it's revocable. But that I can tell you that never happens. I've never seen an easement that's revocable. A license, on the other hand, or some sort of Forest Service permit license for a driveway is revocable. But a private easement is just as good as owning it in fee. And it has no bearing on city maintenance, any city obligations. Cities, the owner's going to run some utility lines through there, dry and wet utilities. Those all belong to the owner because it's going to come off the main lines in the street in Lakeview Drive. So there's no city. It doesn't implicate any city obligation whatsoever. But what you want to make sure you do is for that backlot owner to have a permanent access to his property. The flag lot creates that permanent access. That flag lot owner then grants an easement back to the front lot owner to continue to use that part of the flag where the driveway is.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
Okay, Any of the other commissioners have a comment on this one?
That was my only thought.
Yeah, well, I'm especially familiar with this because on the north side of that North Lakeview is Prescott Lakes. And that road, the North Lakeview, used to be a county road, and I believe it was probably came into the city in the 70s, something like that. And it was built as a rural road, and it wasn't to any particular standards as far as all these homes that with these large lots are they're probably 100 feet in elevation change, and the HOA, all the homeowners from Prescott Lakes along there have had serious difficulty with all the water coming down and crossing the road and taking out their new landscaping because the individual driveway accesses had very small, non-uniform culverts, and over the years, a lot of those ditches have silted in, so the water doesn't even drain it to any particular location. Now, I don't believe this has got any relevance on what we're trying to do here in terms of allow the lot split, but I just wanted to have on record that there's an issue along there. The Prescott Lakes Board had talked with Public Works about, well, can we tell the landowners all the driveways to get them back standard and make them 18-inch culverts or whatever, but nothing ever moved ahead of that. So it's just somewhat of a continuous problem. But this proposal at hand, I think what we're doing here is not really doesn't depend on what I'm discussing in terms of the actual drainage and construction issues. But I think that's kind of some of what Terry was getting to along there, if you're familiar with exactly where that is. I don't know. See, that's probably city right of way for the driveway accesses, but it's each property owner's responsibility to do what they do, and the fact that it impacts somebody across the street it was kind of one of those non-enforceable things from the HOA's perspective. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on, that's almost chasing a separate issue here.
I think just approve it.
Yeah. So any other discussion? Okay. We'll entertain a motion on this now.
I move that we approve RFP 18-016 as written.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Nope. I'll raise your right hand and say aye if you approve.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 3, comprehensive sign plan for Yavapai Regional Medical Center. Okay, Katie, I believe you're the person there.
Good morning. Thanks. Katie Peterson, Community Planner. And this is regarding the proposed comprehensive sign plan with the Yavapai Regional Medical Center. The case number, or project number is SIG 18-001. So I'll go over the proposed comprehensive sign plan and the general land development code requirements for that, as well as the proposal. The site is on multiple parcels with existing buildings. They do have 3 upcoming capital improvement projects that they're taking into consideration with their proposed comprehensive sign plan. The zoning is business general on the site. They're proposing to upgrade, it's basically an upgrading of the existing signs and some addition of new signs, as well as take into account future signs that they may need. So in the land development code, just to review it quickly, section 9.7.4F is where you'll find the criteria for comprehensive sign plans, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's just this, I've quoted it right here. The idea is an improved design in exchange for greater number of signs or larger sign face area than otherwise would be permitted by the code. The location 1003 Willow Creek Road. And it includes generally that block, as well as there you can see the parcel. It's 4 parcels, and so it includes that parcel on the northwest corner that juts out there. That's just across the street on that little dead-end cul-de-sac. They've provided here a site plan that shows their proposal, which is, you can see in the black dots indicate where they're proposing wall signs. So it's numbers 1 through 13 are the proposed wall signs. The red dots indicate where they're proposing monument or other ground-mounted signs. So as you can see, they're distributed mostly around the periphery of the site. Generally, the larger monument signs, which are proposed to be 12 feet in height, which is higher than the existing signs, are at the entrances. So they've got 2 entrances there on the south, I believe 1 on the west, 2 on the north, 2 or 3 on the north side, and then 1 on the east side. Generally, the wall signs are the ones you think of as the hospital wall signs, the emergency signs, entrances, the building identification signs. The 11 freestanding signs, they're proposing 5 replacements and 6 new signs. So those are largely those directional signs. They exceed the height of the existing ones. Some of them are 2-sided, some of them are 3-sided. The future signs that they have in mind, they're asking for 600 square foot allowance for the future signs on site. And that would cover the 3 capital improvement projects, which are estimated to be about 173,000 square foot projects. So that would include buildings and parking areas in those new projects and signs for that general area, as well as any other future buildings and parking areas they might need. Generally, because it's a medical use service, obviously they need clearly visible directional and location signs. The number and sizes proposed would exceed what's allowed. They have multiple monument signs on each parcel, frontage, as well as on the interior of the site, multiple wall signs, obviously. And the proposal does meet existing and future needs of the site and complements their existing site. So those are the general criteria we would need to meet by the Land Development Code. And the staff report includes a list of each of the signs, the dimensions, a full list of each sign of the ones they're currently proposing on the existing site with the existing buildings and parking areas. I can answer any questions, and the applicant is here also if you have any questions for them.
Okay. The first one I have is when we do these plans and it's not going to be implemented right away because there are buildings to construct and everything, then what is the process of the actual installation of the sign? Do they have to come in and then get a sign permit, and we do an inspection to make sure the monument is built correctly and check it off in terms of, okay, yes, that meant what we really did here? I mean, they still have to come back in and when they build these buildings, don't they?
Correct. So the comprehensive sign plan review lays out a comprehensive plan for the locations and dimensions of the signs and total square footage. So the process for reviewing and approving each sign is the same as any other proposed sign.
Well, but they don't have to pay a fee, do they, if it's part of a comprehensive sign plan?
They would go through the normal permit review process for signs. So they would still pay a fee.
For every sign that they do?
Yes, so the difference is we would now check it against this comprehensive sign plan as well as the code.
Yeah.
So we check to make sure that it meets, the locations, the square footage, and the general design.
Okay. Terry, it looks like you got something to,
No, I was just going to ask that if all of the submittals meet the land development code, and if the staff recommended, I'm in favor of just moving forward and having a vote and getting it over with.
yep. Well,
I have a
we like that attitude. What do you think about that, Jim? You're okay with that attitude? That, yeah. Well, we could milk this for another couple hours. Okay, George, you have
Chairman,
something to say?
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
On page 2 of the staff report, under wall
Yes.
signs,
Okay.
it says 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 are entrance, and 1 is 24 square feet. I'm looking at the photo, number 4, and it says 26 square feet. Is that just a typo?
Let me pull it up. And I might have the applicant come up and go over a little bit more in detail. Just a moment.
The applicant here, could you clarify that particular sign?
Which sign number was it again? Or which item?
It's number 4, the emergency sign.
Okay, 26
Picture
square
says
feet.
26 feet, and the verbiage in the staff report says 24. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
I
please
see.
introduce yourself and your name and location.
My name is Dale Johnson.
And the microphone too, yeah.
My name is Dale Johnson. I'm with Signs Plus, 9200 Valley Road in Prescott Valley. That particular sign is an existing sign. It's 2 foot by 13 foot, so it is 26 square feet. In that particular case, we're taking out the existing plastic face and putting in a routed aluminum face, so the white background would be opaque and the letters would light up.
So 26 is the answer?
26 is the answer, yes.
So that's probably a typo then in the staff report. Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, okay, go ahead, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this on?
Yeah,
Sounds kind of fun. Thank you.
it should be on, yeah.
Okay. I just had a couple questions, and thank you, staff, for a very thorough report. And I'm glad to see that they're going to improve their signs on the campus. It's very commendable to do that, because signs are obviously a very important part of your campus. First, I want to say there are 2 major considerations that I looked at in an application like this. The reason, in my previous life, I was responsible for a master sign program for one of the campuses of the University of California. So I'm obviously very interested in this application. I think they've done a good job with their application, and thank you for a very thorough presentation with the photos and things. That really makes it easy. But there are 2 considerations in a program like this. First is the effectiveness of the signs. Do they transmit the message clearly and quickly, especially to someone driving a car, because there's a safety issue there. If someone comes up and the letters are too small, or it's not in the right place or whatever, there could be a problem, a traffic issue and safety concern. Second, of course, is aesthetics, the appearance of the signs, and I think your signs look very, very handsome. First question I had for staff, I want to make sure I understand clearly. Numbers 1 through 13 are all existing signs that won't be modified. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. The first 13 existing signs.
There's
Or
13
minor
existing.
Yeah, the ones with the black numbers, 1 through 13.
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
So the freestanding signs, it specifies which ones are replacements and which ones are new.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
good.
the wall signs are all,
Good, because I think the existing signs that you've listed on those do a good job. I mean, when I drive by, there's no question where the emergency room is, which is the first thing you need to know if you're in a hurry for some reason. So I think the existing signs do a good job. I have no comments on those. On the others, I had a question of Mr. Johnson. The question was, are all of the letter sizes, now on the photos you provided, it doesn't give the letter sizes, and the size of the letters is, to me, more important than the size of the sign, because that's what transmits the message, and we want to make sure they're large enough to do it and do it safely. Are all of the letter sizes on the new signs at least as large as the letter sizes on the existing signs they're replacing?
Yes, they are. These signs are actually 18 square foot larger than the existing. So the letter size is as large or larger than the existing.
On
Correct.
page 9 of 15 in your report, do you have that one? We could look at that. Katie, can we look at that up on the screen? I had a couple questions about that exhibit. Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you. At the top, the elevations of the signs there, as I said, I'm more concerned about the size of the lettering than the size of the sign. There's no dimensions on the size of the letters. I went out and I looked at the existing signs, which in some cases I think might be a little small. In some cases they're hard to read because in that case the background was a light blue with light letters, which is not, you should have very dark colors, as you know, like you're proposing, so you have a good contrast. So it's definitely an improvement over what the existing signs are from that standpoint. But on those at the top, for example, the word emergency up there, the word emergency was 5 inches, the letters were 5 inches high on the existing. How high they are on those signs?
I do not have that information right now. I could scale it if I had a ruler,
No,
but
too small.
I do not have that information
But
right
it's
now.
at least as large as the existing one
Yes,
or larger.
yeah, it is, absolutely, yes.
And the same for the other words below those. They're at
Yes.
least as large. They were 3.5 inches for the capital letters, which is minimal, I think. If they're
Correct.
larger, that would even be better. What criteria did you use in determining the letter size on these? How would you say,
Well,
this should be a 6-inch because we want the drivers to see it 180 feet away? Or
Right, yes. As you know, there was a study done by one of the universities in California years ago that basically if a letter height is 3 inches, you've got what they call, say, maximum impact at 30 feet. Yet, if you've got good eyesight, you can still read it from almost 300 feet away. So it's kind of scales like that, 1 inch, 10 feet, 4
Okay.
inches, 40 feet.
Okay, that's good because the standard we used was 1 inch equals 35 feet of readability. So if you're using 30 feet, that's even better.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
The other point was on the arrows, directing people to the different areas. And as you see up here, this one here, emergency and visitor parking, I looked at that and I thought there could be some confusion with the average person that's not a graphic designer to see which direction. I showed it to my wife and said, what do you think of this? And she said, it's kind of confusing because the shafts have been removed from the arrows on the existing signs. When you've got a shaft, there's no question which way you go. Now there, you've got, looks like a bracket almost you're doing. So you have, takes a second to think, no, which way are we going? So I was concerned about eliminating the arrows because I think it could cause a little delay in people interpreting the sign.
And we could work on that part of it, in the permitting process.
Okay.
Yep.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Jared, you have something? Do you have anything? You got something there?
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mel. Some of your comments were similar to mine. But mine really have to do with, a number of years ago we were talked about the comprehensive sign package, and we came up with a code, I don't know what to call it, but when we had the flashing signs and the electronic signs that could change, we required them to, I think it was 30 seconds to be stagnant. for 30 seconds. And the reason for that was the whole purpose of a sign is, it's not really the purpose, but the effect of a sign is to distract the driver. Then the next purpose of the sign is to inform the driver. So I tend to agree with the lettering on a couple of the signs, not all of them. There's, you know, you take that your sign number 14, which is at the Willow Creek entrance. It's a big sign. You only got two things other than emergency. People are going to get that. I understand it. My concern was mainly with the sign for the Prescott imaging, which is number 23. That, let me get to that one. There's a lot going on there, and that sign's not going to be near the intersection. I think people are going to miss that. I'm not going to say no. I think this is a great sign package, by the way. I love the sign. It's better. It's more informative. It's clear. I like the fact they're 12 foot because it gives space in between the directions. I'd like to see that space. There's a lot of dead space on that sign, and I think because you're coming to a hospital where there's some sense of anxiety, either as you're driving yourself in an emergency or your spouse is driving you, everybody's a little anxious, so clarity is a great thing. So I agree with Mel about some of the signs having larger fonts, if you will. I think the consciousness about that is all that has to be done. So I'm not going to say no to this proposal. Sure. But I think a consciousness of, take on sign 23, I go to Prescott Medical Imaging a lot, so I know where it is. But the sign's past the intersection. So people sometimes would have to drive up Whipple and come back around if they're coming for the first time. I don't want the sign closer to the intersection. I think that's really inviting a problem. My main comment, it was that, it's the larger letters. But the sign I don't like, because we're using it for more than just signage, is the one for the Prescott Medical Imaging medical offices. I don't think that sign should be a building directory. And it's also a large sign, and people coming out and going in there may not, that sign will block some people. As will, by the way, I think the sign on Ainsworth at Willow Creek Road. It's very close to the intersection, so I would just like to be sure that or have you guys sure that it's not going to impact visibility for the drivers on those two signs. But I really don't like the doctor's office's names and suite numbers. That's a directional sign, in my opinion, and shouldn't be on the sign telling people, here's where the building you're coming to is. I can just picture my wife Carol saying, he's in 102 and I'm trying to turn the corner and I'm not, it's too much going on at an intersection there. It's not a big intersection. Ainsworth is not a busy street, but I think I'd like to see the medical offices on a separate building directory. We had a case on, I think it was Thumb Butte Medical Facility on Willow Creek at Montana, where the first application came in with all these guys' names. Well, you're not going to be, people are going 40 miles an hour. You'll get rear-ended trying to look and see if your doctor really is in that building. So I think direction signs shouldn't be on monument signs. My only thoughts, I'm voting for it, but I'd like to see some consciousness in that.
Make a comment? I agree with you on that. And personally, there's two things. That sign does set out pretty close to the road. I've looked at it and, thought about, if we could pull it back away from the road within that planter, yet still get it up above the cars so you could see it. But the other thing is I agree with you. I mean, as you can see, the existing sign has the doctors' names, and you could leave medical offices there and move those names further into the.
There's a great spot in front of the building for a building directory sign.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, you have some comments? you know, I'm at Prescott Lakes, and we've had different signs there, and they don't really have a comprehensive sign plan, but some of the signage has been installed where it's just lettering on the side of a retaining wall or a very large surface area, and in that particular case, I believe only the boundary of with the raised lettering or carved-in lettering was counted, as opposed to the entire background at which it was being placed on. You know, that there's a little different. The other is on the car dealerships, et cetera, where you have a large frontage and a large building, and we have somewhat standards there in terms of if you're a certain distance away or the overall property is of a certain size, then we recommend a certain, you know, different size lettering or allow larger lettering. A lot of that relates to some similar comments in terms of setback, especially on these 35 most of the roads around there where you could be moving along, and so you want to be able to really have those the emergency and those type signs pop out to know, okay, I'm in the right area here. So that's just comments, but I certainly am supporting this plan. Katie, did you have something you wanted to? Yeah, you looked like you were going to tell me I was doing something wrong. You know, and Matt, did you get it? Yes. Did you get a donut, by the way, Matt? I mean, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, the world is in balance. Yes. Okay, I don't believe we have any public comment here. It doesn't appear. Of course, the councilman, but you're sitting down with a smile, which I don't see all the time.
He had a donut too.
Other than that,
Which
kind
one are you
of,
talking to?
yeah. Well, you know,
I think we need
Jim
more agenda.
took the back row there. Okay, do we have any other discussion or want to make a motion on this?
I move that we approve SIG 18-001, the comprehensive sign plan for Yavapai Regional Medical Center.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, please vote, raise your right hand and say aye for approval.
Aye.
Yep. Aye. Any opposed? No. Good. I don't even see departmental business or anything on the agenda here, so it looks like we're done and the meeting is adjourned.